Okay, so in my last video, I wanted to scrape the Uber Eats orders page because I wanted to know. I wanted like an easy export of my Uber Eats data. And I do this all the time. Like, I'll request my data from loads of sites that I'm a member of, like Amazon and Uber and whatever else. Anyone who will let me export data, I will ask for export of my data like every couple of months. But it's annoying. And it doesn't always come in the format that I want and whatever. So I was like, well, I can log into the site and I can just export the data myself. So the last time I did this, I tried to scan through the order page and pick out the pieces that I want. So the pieces of data that I want are the name of the restaurant, how many items I purchased, the price, so that's for every order. And I also want how much money have I spent on Uber Eats in total, and how many times have I been to each restaurant, and how much money have I spent at each restaurant. Because some restaurants I've only ordered once, some restaurants I've ordered loads of times. So I just want, an idea of these things. Why do I want these things? Who knows? Because I like to waste my time. But there are a few things that I've learned. So I've been a software engineer for, I don't know, 11 years or 12 years or something. Very long. And there are things that, even though you're a software engineer and you do software engineering all the time, there are things that you don't know exist because you've never had to solve that problem before. And a lot of the problems that I've had to solve, because I've mostly been like a careerist software engineer, are problems that were presented to me by my employer. So like the last person I worked for, they wanted me to solve some problems, and the problems I was exposed to were problems that were related to the thing that I had to solve for them. But it's quite limiting, It's kind of like if you're a musician and you only play music that people ask you to play. Your creativity becomes quite limited, because all you know is what people ask you to do. And when you do stuff a lot, you do end up with like these wiggly things in your mind where you're like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to do this. But you kind of don't kind of go down that way. You don't really let your creativity expand in those directions. So that's kind of like why I want to do this and other stupid things is because it's a bit of a way to like expose myself to things I've never really had to do before, and there are things that I'm kind of generally interested in. So one of those things that I didn't know existed, despite using Chrome forever and using Chrome dev tools forever, one of the things I didn't know existed was snippets. So the last time I was doing this, I was doing everything in here in the console, because that's kind of what I'm used to. You see this with a lot of engineers where they like use console log a lot, and then there are other engineers that they're very firmly in like debugging with like breakpoints and stuff like that. And whatever you start off doing, you just keep doing it. Even though there's a better way, there's a muscle memory that builds up. So my muscle memory built up over time was to just use the console. And using the console is great, but it also sucks because it's not easy to rerun stuff. You have to keep reloading the page. You lose your history. Like, you can't look at anything. Like when I'm coding, I code in a text editor where I can see the entire file and I can write comments and go back and change things, and you can't do that in the console, obviously. So the thing that I didn't know existed before was snippets. So that's what I'm going to use to redo what I did last time with a couple other changes. So I'm going to make a new snippet here, scrape UberEats.js. Let's go to this. Okay, so one of the things with the last thing that I did, it wasn't scalable. So before I kind of jump into the snippet, one of the reasons it's not scalable is because I was using class-based selectors. And for unsophisticated websites, class-based selectors are actually quite fine. Like I scraped Zillow at some point last year, and they have pretty standard classes that don't change very much. There are elements of the page where they change, and then there are other elements of the page where the classes are pretty much the same. But Uber is quite sophisticated. Obviously, they have very good people working there, and their classes, so these class names, they change every time. I think every time the front end is redeployed, every time it's rebuilt and redeployed, the class names change because obviously they're not actually using these class names. This is probably like text, left, flex one. It has like actual names, but they get condensed down through minification. So you can't really use class-based selectors if you're trying to scrape a good website because it may work when you wrote it, but it's going to break as soon as they change anything about the website. So I needed to do something else. I need to use something else to get the data that I want. So the pieces of data, again, that I want is I want the name of the restaurant and I want this text here. And I've been using UberEats for quite a while, and the text here never really changes. You have like some number of items for some dollar amount, and then the dates, and then view receipts and request invoice. Like these things have pretty much been the same for over a year. So I'm going to use that to look for the to get the elements that I want instead of using the class-based method I was using before. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to make a helper function because we need to drill down to find the base elements that we want, right? So if I did, just kind of go over this again, if I did document dot query selector all a tag with href that has store in it. Oops. Right, so I'm looking for an a tag that is a link that has /store in the link. I'm going to get a whole bunch of links here. Actually, I did this the last time. This is not a very good example. Let me just do, A tags are not great because A tags are base elements. Let me do divs. Okay, so if I look for divs, there are loads of divs here. And then some of these divs are spacers. But like these divs have divs inside of them that have divs inside of them that then have like p tags and a tags and the actual text that I want. So if I try to do a search for give me elements that have items for in the text, not only am I going to get this text, I'm also going to get the parent of it. So there's a parent here, right? So this thing also has items for inside of it. So I'm going to get the parent, and then I'm going to get this thing, and then I'm going to get this entire row, and then I'm going to get all the past orders. I'm going to get a whole bunch of duplicates, and I don't want that. I want the base element, the smallest element that has the thing that I want. And I need to do this twice. So I'm going to create a helper function that will allow me to do this efficiently. So that's kind of where we're going to start. So the base element, make this a little bigger. So the base element is, again, I'm horrible at names, but it's called find matching child, right? So let's say like this is the parent, this whole thing here. I want the child. Give me the child that matches the query that I want. And the query is going to be quite dynamic, right? Because I may be searching for an element that has text, or maybe I want to do a query where I'm checking for a specific attribute, or maybe it's multidimensional. Maybe I want to check the text, and I want to check the attribute, and I want to check and I want to see if it has children. So like maybe I don't get the smallest child, but I find a parent of a child, right? So I want my helper function to be quite flexible. So instead of passing a parent, which would be an HTML element, and then passing like a regex or a text like items for, instead of doing something like that, I'm going to pass a query function. And then inside of my query function, I can do any complex stuff that I want. And then this query function, I can't do TypeScript in here, but the query function is going to take an element and then return a Boolean, right? Or Boolean. I say Boolean. Boolean. It's a Boolean. Boolean is that thing with the chicken. Yeah, so I may want to do some complex stuff in there. So I'm just going to pass a query function. Okay. So the first thing we want to check is whether or not the thing we're passing in here is something that would have children, right? We want to check that it is a node, right? So I'm actually going to call it element because it may not be a parent. Let's just be a bit more specific. So we want to skip if this is not an element node, right? So if element dot node type does not equal node dot element node. So if this is not an HTML element, then return, because it may be something else. It may be like a script tag or a web component or an iframe or something. It may be something that I'm not interested in. I'm only interested in HTML elements like p tags and divs and spans and a tags. So if it's not one of those, then forget it. Just let's not worry about it. So the next thing I want to check, obviously, is I want to check if the current element. Oh no, sorry. We need to go back one. I had originally done this in this way where I was kind of going step by step, but then I realized that it is better to use a depth first search. So let's go back a step. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create this is another issue that I ran into where I was using an array, but if you use an array, you could end up with the same element multiple times in the array, right? Because the array is not checking. So we want to set the results that we're going to return to a set. So here we're going to create a traverse function. Now this is going to take an element, and this is the parent, right? So in our traverse function, this is where we're going to do this. So we're going to use recursion. I know, recursion, horrible. Now we want to check if the current element, I don't know how to spell, I don't know how to type. I know how to spell, but I don't know how to type. If the current element matches the query. So if query function element, then we want to see, it's like, okay, the element that we're dealing with right now has what I'm looking for, right? It has items for or something else. Fantastic. Now I want to see if the element has matching children, right? So does this element have children that also match this query, right? And if it does, then we want to go get it. Okay, so has matching children. This is false initially. Then we're going to go through every child of the element. And if the child matches, if we find a child inside of the element that also matches the query, then we want to set this to true and we want to break. It's like, okay, this element has the thing that we want. It may be this whole row here that has all of the stuff. But, oh yeah, there's this child here. There's, like, this wouldn't be, like, this one piece of text wouldn't be it, but, like, this row is actually 3 pieces. You have this piece with the image, you have this piece with all the text, and then you have this component that has the buttons. It's like, okay, check, get this element. Does this image have it? Okay, no, move on. Does this thing have it? Yeah, it does. Okay, there's a child. Okay, let's break. Let's not even go to the buttons. We have a child that has what we're looking for. So stop looking. So we're gonna break. And then since we know that one of the children of this element has what we're looking for, we're not going to add if the element, sorry, it's the other way around. Well, it's true. If the element has a child that matches the query, we're not going to add it to the results. But if the element has no children that has the text that we're looking for, then we want to add it to the results. And results.add element. Right? So we're querying the element. Then if it has no matching children, add it to the results. So we'll kind of go through here. We'll be going through all of these. And then so in this example, the element that's going to end up being added to the result, the only element in this whole row here, for instance, that doesn't have a child that matches the query will be this piece of text. It won't be this whole row. It won't be this whole thing. It will only be this piece. This will be the only element that gets added to the results. So that makes sure that we don't end up with duplication. Right? Okay, perfect. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is, because of the way query selecting works, we have to traverse all the element children because matching elements could be in any branch of the DOM, right? So we kind of have to do this again, right? So for a const child of element dot children, and this is where we're going to use recursion. We're going to traverse that child, right? So this will make sure that we go through every single branch of the DOM to make sure that we end up with the child that we're looking for, because we may end up going down a branch that doesn't have what we're looking for, but we need to go down the branch that may have what we're looking for. Like there are cases where this thing will not be true, but there is a child in there that has it. Okay, cool. So now that we have this, now that we have our traverse function, now we can pass the parent. right? So it's going to go through all this and it's going to add it to the results. The results is going to be, it's a set. So we could return it as a set, but we want something that's a bit more usable. So we're going to turn it into an array. Okay, perfect. So now we have our helper function. Now we can actually scrape it. Now we can actually scrape this page. So we have an async function, scrape orders. Boop, boop. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the main. So I've already looked at the DOM, and I know that there's a main component here. It doesn't include the navigation, but there's a main component here that wraps this past orders and the list of orders. So we want the main function. The next thing we want to do is at the bottom of the page, there's a show more button that when you click it, more orders get loaded. So I want all my orders. I don't only want the first page of orders. So I need to find that element. So I want document, so I need to do array.from. So I want to find that button. So find all the buttons. I can't just search by text. So give me all of the buttons. This is not ideal. What if I do it like this? There we go. Okay. Give me all the buttons. Yeah, I'll do it like this. More readable. Okay. I'm obsessed. Give me all the buttons. And then find the button that has text content equal to show more. So obviously this is not going to work for, and you'll see when I'm looking for the price, this is only going to work in English and for US dollars. It's not going to work for other currencies. You'd have to modify it. The functionality itself will work, like the logic, but you'll have to change the text, obviously, because if it's in another language, it's not going to work. But I speak English, so that's fine. So what we want to do is we want to get the show button, and we want to click it. But if there's no show button, then we can just break. Because, oops. If there's no show button, that means we've loaded all the pages. So show button dot click, and then we're going to wait a bit because it's going, when you press show more, it's going to make an API request. So we want to wait a bit before clicking show more again. So we want to click it, wait a second. Uber is pretty fast, so wait a second, and then see if the show more button is there, and if it is, click it, and then just keep clicking the button until it's gone. That means we've loaded all the pages. Okay. So once we're done with that, that means we have all the orders are on the page. So now we can find all the order elements. Okay, so now is when we're going to use our helper function, right? So this is going to be quite nice because I don't have to write anything too crazy because I've already written all the weird stuff to find the element that I want. So now I want to find a matching child that's within main. And then my query function is going to be give me return. Oops. Okay, this is This is a bit weird because we have to use regex because it's always in this format, which is annoying, which is good because it's easy to find, but you don't have to use regex, but it's much easier if you do, and it's pretty good to kind of understand regex anyway. So how do we know what this text looks like, right? So it's always some number followed by items for, and then some dollar amount. Now, this may be multiple digits. It may be 1 through 9, or it may be 10, it may be 2 digits, or maybe 3 digits, or maybe I spent $1,000 on this order. Who knows? So we need to find any number of digits, right? That's followed by a space. So it's some number of digits, space, and then the word. So if I only bought one item, which I never do because it would be a complete waste to do Uber. I'm sure people do it, but I would never do it because like to pay the shipping fee and the tip for a fucking McFlurry would be ridiculous. But whatever. So it's some number of digits, a space, item or items, right? If it's only one, then it's only going to be item, one item for. Then in another space, then the word for, then another space, then a dollar sign, some number of digits, a period, some number of digits, and then that's it. So we want to test the l.text content. So we want to also pass a string in here because sometimes you may end up getting an element that doesn't have a text content, in which case it will return null. And then this line will break. So we don't want it to break. We just want it to return false. And obviously an empty string would return false. So it should contain this piece, some digits, items for a dollar amount. But we don't only want this line. We also want the name of the restaurant. So that's important too. We want the name of the restaurant. Because if we only look for items for, we're only going to get this one line. But we want the name of the restaurant too. So it should also have, and this is what I was doing before. So it should have an A tag that has an href that contains store. Right? So it should have this text, and then this thing right here is an A tag, is a link that goes to the McDonald's store page, like the specific McDonald's store page that I ordered from. And that should not be null, right? Okay, so this gives me all of my orders. So what I'll end up with here is this. I'll end up with this and this thing here. I'll end up with the name of the restaurant. I'll end up with this component here that has the name of the restaurant and this items for stuff. Perfect. Now I'm going to define the thing that I want, because now that I have my orders, I can loop over them to extract the data that I want. So I'm going to create an object, which is what I will modify and what I will return at the end. So if you remember what I wanted, I want the total. I want a map of the restaurants that I went to, like a summary of my interactions with each individual restaurant. And I'm doing that as an object so that I don't end up with, I can coalesce my interactions. Like if I ordered from Takaya multiple times, I want that all condensed into one summary for Takaya as opposed to multiple summaries for every single time I ordered from Takaya. And then I want all of the orders themselves. which is quite helpful if you're like debugging, or if I wanted to do something else interesting with the order data. Okay. So now that I have that, now I can go over every order and extract the data that I want. So the first thing I need is I need the restaurant link. Okay. So the restaurant link will be right. So every order is going to be an HTML element. So I want this. I want the link to the restaurant. And I want its text content. I had some error handling, but I don't really need to do the error handling because it's going to be a bit of a waste of time when I know it's already there. So now I want the info. So this is a little complex. So I want array.from. Oops. I want the order dot query selector all. So I want all of the elements that are inside of the order. Right. And then from there, I want to find the element that has items all. I did includes, but sometimes I'm not sure if Chrome, sometimes when I do includes, like Chrome doesn't support it, so I'm just going to do index of. So items for is greater than or equal to 0. But I did one too much, but okay. So find the element that has items for, which is this one. So the thing about the items for is that it has this dot in it, right? So it separates the items for blah, 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 that like regex thing that I did, but it also has the date, and it's separated by this period. And the period also separates these links over here, which I don't want. I only want this piece of data, and I want this piece of data, but I don't want the view receipts and the request invoice. That's a bit of a waste. Like I can't do anything with that. So I'm going to take that, and once I have it, I'm going to split. I need to grab a string from over here. I'm actually going to copy this whole thing so I don't have to like type the whole thing out. So, okay, make it a little more readable. Okay, so I want to find this element here. I want to split it by that, so this will turn each of these into an array, so it'll be an array with 4 items in it. There's going to be spaces around the dot. I can't do the spaces in here. There's some weirdness where if you try to split with spaces around the dot, it doesn't work. So I need to split it first, and then I need to trim it. And then I only want the first 2 items, which is the number of items, the price, and the date. I don't want view receipts and request invoice. So that's my info. Then I want the items and price and the date from the info, right? Pull those out. I want the number of items in that order and the price from items and price dot split items for, because like the text items for is useless to me. I just want the number and then the price. So I can split it, and then that will remove items for, and it will give me the number of items and the price text. Perfect. And then the price will be number I don't want the text. Obviously, I need the text. I need the number and not the text, so that I can add it to the total and then do my summary for the restaurant. So I just want to remove, and this is another case where like this will only work for the US or for dollars, because I want to slice the first element off. So now I'll get 4166 instead of the dollar sign. So slice, get 4166, and then parse load it. Okay, now I can do my data analysis. So the first thing I want to do is I want to update the, I'm not gonna bother with this. I was gonna like add comments here, but I'm talking, so listen to what I'm saying. So I want to add the price, the result.total. Now I'm gonna copy this so I don't have to type it all, and then I'll explain it, what it is. So I want to update the total. Once I've updated the total, I want to update the restaurants. So first I need to check if I've already added the restaurant to this yet. If I have already added the restaurant, then I should update the visits and update the total, adding the price. If I haven't added the restaurant to the restaurant's map, then I'll set it to visits 1, and then the total is obviously just the price, because this is the first time that I'm looking at that particular restaurant. So I've updated the total, I've updated the restaurants, and now the last thing is just add the order itself, the information for the order itself, to the orders. And I'll add the name of the restaurant, the number of items for that particular order, the price, and the date. And now I can just return my result. So it'll be this, because I've updated it by going through here. And I can scrape my orders, and then I'm going to console log the results, and if there is an error, then I'll console.error it. And there shouldn't be an error because I've done this like 15 times. Okay. So, can I close this? No. Oop-a-doo. Where is it? Where are you? Scrape orders, console log. Where is it? Where is my value? I don't see my value. Hold on. Let me clear this. We're going to run this again. Oh, so my result is undefined. Let's see why. And scrape orders. Where are we? Yeah, scrape orders, async, blah, blah, blah. The result is here. Update the price, push this in. I'm just gonna console log here. I mean, like, I know that this will be undefined, but sanity check. Result. L is not defined. Okay, that's why. So let's see where I wrote L. I wrote L somewhere else. Where is it? It's a good thing and a not good thing. I must have wrote it somewhere towards the end. It's a good thing, but a not good thing about this. I wrote it here, but I also wrote it somewhere else. Here it is. E. See? It's a good thing about snippets is that you can easily like write out a very long file, but a not good thing is that you don't get any like real error handling like inside of here. Like if I type like foobar, it's not going to yell at me and tell me that foobar doesn't exist, which is not ideal. Okay, so let's get rid of that. And then I need to write this over again. just go ahead and take this from here, boom. And now let's run this. Save this and run it again. It's another issue. Let's see. Result. But actually, I don't think I need to do this. I feel like if I got rid of this thing, it was yelling at me if I just did it like that. Yeah, query is not defined, which is here. So this is query function. Okay, query. Okay. Order is not defined. So I must have called it order. Order is there. Let's see. 67. Oh, orders. See? All right. Array.from.find.split is not a function. Oh, because I need the text content. So this is boom, text content, then split it. Okay. Okay, perfect. So now I can get rid of this and then do this. Oh yeah. All right, perfect. Let's store this as a global variable. So now I have what I wanted. So now if I do this, and if I do console.table temp1.orders, no, restaurants, I can do the orders, I'll do the restaurants first. All right, so now I have my analysis that I wanted, right? So I know how many, and I could like order them too if I wanted to, right? You can order them, like how many restaurants have I been to have I ordered from the most? Sweetgreen, Pine and Crane, Mendocino fries. This is so obvious, like salads. And this is, I think it's Korean. I can't remember outside. I'm pretty sure it's a Korean place here in Silver Lake. And then Takaya. Takaya is a bowl place. I'm surprised I haven't ordered more from Takaya. I probably only order from it when I make someone else order it. Because I've definitely eaten Takaya multiple times. But I must make other people order it. So I don't have to pay for it. Yeah, how much, where have I gone to that I've spent the most money? Pine and Crane. Yeah, Pine and Crane is expensive. It's also like, it's one of the top places that I've been to. But like, Sweetgreen, I've also ordered from Sweetgreen 3 times. And Sweetgreen is like, 40% cheaper than, I've spent like 40% less at Sweetgreen than Pine and Crane, which is quite interesting. So that's it. So this is a way better way of doing what I did last time, to analyze my UberEats orders.